Okay, so again, we're going to continue a little bit more about Sefira, then eventually we will get back to the Nach. And that is, we talked about last time, the Yisur of Chodesh. Now let me just remind you about something we learned in Sefer Yoshua, that when the Jewish people came to Eretz Yisrael after Moshe Rabbeinu died, so the months stopped falling, and they had to eat grain. And now the problem is they crossed the Yarden on the 10th of Nisan. Now the problem is all of the grain in Eretz Yisrael was Chodesh, because it's not going to become mutter until the 16th of Nisan. So what could they eat? They couldn't eat bread from that grain, because that grain is going to have an Isser of Chadash. So Chazal say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed the leftover man not to spoil. Meaning even though normally man would spoil overnight, Hashem made a miracle for the necessity that the man did not spoil, and therefore they were able to live off the man until the 16th of Nisan, when they brought the first Omer offering, and then they mattered the Chadash. So based on this, the Talmud Yerushalmi says a very amazing thing. The mitzvah of matzah you can't fulfill with man. Matzah has to be the 5 grains. So what did they eat for matzah the first night of Pesach? The first night of Pesach. That's only the 15th of Nisan. You're not allowed to eat Chadash. So the Talmud Yerushalmi actually says they did not fulfill the mitzvah of matzah that year. Because of the Yisur Chadash, they did not fulfill the mitzvah of matzah, because it would be a transgression. They would be committing the sin of eating Chadash. So then the Yerushalmi asks the kasha on itself, why should I say they're prohibited from eating the Chadash? We have a general rule, general klal in halacha, aseh doche lo sasa. If you have a positive commandment, a mitzvah saseh, and there's no other way to fulfill the positive commandment except by transgressing a negative commandment, there's no other way. If there's another way, you got to do the other way. But if there's no other way, so what is our rule? The mitzvah saseh pushes aside the lo sasa. So the Yerushalmi asks a very good question. You're telling me that they didn't eat matzah because of the prohibition of Chadash, the first night of Pesach, but there was no non-Chadash they could use. All of the grain was Chadash. So there's no way they could fulfill the mitzvah of matzah except by eating this grain. So instead of saying they can't eat the grain, we should say the positive mitzvah of bi'erev tochlu matzos, which is a mitzvah saseh, should override the negative commandment, thou shalt not eat Chadash. Right? The Yerushalmi asks the kasha, and the Yerushalmi gives 2 interesting terutzim. Teretz number 1 is more of a technical reason. We're not really sure about the logic of it. That the rule that a positive overrides a negative is only if it was a positive mitzvah given at Matan Torah or afterwards. But positive commandments that were given before Matan Torah do not have a power to be docha. And since the mitzvah of bi'erev tochlu matzos was actually not given at Matan Torah, it was given in Mitzrayim, the very first Seder in Mitzrayim. So this is what is called an aseh kodem hadibor, an aseh that was given before the mass revelation of Sinai is somehow a little bit weaker, and it cannot override the negative, and that's why they couldn't eat. And of course, there's a big kasha on that, because one of the sources that the positive overrides the negative is that you do a bris on Shabbos. That the mitzvah of bris on the 8th day overrides. L'chayra bris milah is also given to Avram kaidem adibra. So that actually is a kasha on the Yerushalmi. Okay, I don't want to get into too many details, but that's answer number 1. In other words, why they didn't eat matzah under the rule of Esei Docha Lo Sasa. And then the Yerushalmi gives the answer number 2, that under Torah law they would have eaten the matzah, and it was a rabbinic law, meaning an early rabbinic law dating all the way back to Yoshua ben Nun, a real early Rabbanan, and that's because a gezerah, we're not going to allow you to eat the first kezayis lest you eat an extra kezayis. Because remember, there is an issur of chadash. The mitzvah overrides the negative, but the mitzvah is fulfilled with the first kezayis that you eat. Now, people, will eat more. So eating more is not going to be covered. You have a prohibition not covered by a mitzvah. So Chazal made a gezerah. Chazal, at the time of Yoshua ben Nun, Chazal in that time made a gezerah, thou shalt not eat the first kezayis, lest you come to eat a second kezayis. Okay, so these are 2 terutzim of the Yerushalmi, why they actually did not eat matzah that first time. Now, if you will ask me, but if I say like the second answer, that it's Rabbanan, how can the Rabbanan take away the doing of a mitzvah d'oraisa? The answer is, they certainly do that. We don't blow shofar when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, lest you carry it. We don't take lulav when Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, lest you carry it. In other words, Chazal have a koach to tell you not to do a positive commandment in the Torah if they are worried that you will come to transgress a negative commandment. So this would be another example of that. Kezayis Rishon, not to Kezayis Sheni. Now again, it's brought down that I cannot deceive you, so if I'm quoting Yerushalmi, you might think I'm a Bucky in the Yerushalmi, which I'm not, so I have to just mention that, just to cover myself, that Tosfos and Kedushin brings this Yerushalmi, and both terutzim. So I know this shtickle. I've looked up the Yerushalmi over the years, but I was alerted to the Yerushalmi by Tosfos in Maseches Kedushin, right? So Mirza Hashem, I hope you'll see the Yerushalmi too, but at least I hope you will see the Tosfos at some point and learn that Tosfos. Okay. Just as a general aside, there's a very interesting thought of Ramban in Parshas Yisro. Why is it the case that the positive overrides the negative? I mean, maybe I should say the opposite. Maybe the negative should be so strong that I don't do the positive. Why in a conflict between positive and negative do you say that the positive, the asay, overrides the negative? So Ramban says a very beautiful thought. He says, we know that there is serving Hashem out of fear, reverence for God, awe, and serving Hashem out of love. He says negative commandments emanate from the emotion of fear. I don't dare do something because I'll get in big trouble. So Losa says are reflective of Yira. When you do positive actions, that's how you show love and care. And since love of Hashem is a higher madrega than Yiras Hashem, although you need Yiras Hashem as your foundation, the asay overrides the lo sasa because ava is a greater madrega than yira. This is what the Ramban says in Parshas Yisrei, asay docha lo sasa. A point to ponder, which I'm not going to address, but I will throw it out for you to think about, and that is, well, wait a second here. There seems to be a collision course. On one hand, you're telling me, if you have a positive commandment, the only way you can transgress it is by committing a negative. The only way you could fulfill it is by transgressing the negative. Transgress the negative in order to do the positive, right? That's asay dochalos asa. That's principle number one. But then we have a principle number two, which seems to be making exactly the opposite statement. Mitzvah haba bi'avera. What does that mean? If you do a mitzvah through the commission of an avera, not only do you have an avera, but you don't even get the mitzvah. The example would be, I stole a lulav, and there was no other lulav I could use. In such a situation, not only am I a ganav, which I am, but I don't even get the mitzvah for it. Meaning I would be better off had I not taken anything at all, so I wouldn't have a mitzvah, but I wouldn't have the avera of stealing. If I steal a lulav, right, I have the sin, and I don't have the mitzvah. So these two principles seem to be on a collision course. Esse dochalosa instructs me, transgress the negative in order to do the positive, because the positive overrides the negative. Mitzvah haba bi'avera teaches me the opposite. If the way you do a mitzvah is by commission of a sin, you don't even get the mitzvah. The mitzvah doesn't count, because God does not want mitzvahs to be done by violating his will. So both principles make sense when you look at them separately. Problem is, how do you reconcile that? Okay, I will leave that for you to think about, and it's a good question. So it's always good when you're walking in the street and the Torah says, "Balechtacha v'derech," even when you're traveling, you should be occupied in Torah. So it's always good, when you're traveling, if you're not on a train or a bus, it's hard to read a sefer while you're walking, although some people do that actually, but they hit the trees or whatever it is. But it's brought down that one of the things you have questions that you think about, things that you can think about, and that's a fulfillment of learning while you are traveling on the road. Another way of doing it, the Gemara actually said that every person should have a maseches, because he was talking to his talmidim, a maseches that you actually know either by heart or shakla v'tarya, not word for word, but question answer, that you could review while you were walking. In fact, I read about different gedolim sometimes. This was their recreation. They would just start saying over shas to each other, meaning, let's say two gedolim are sitting here. Says, okay, you start with brachos, and the person would do the first 30 blot of brachos by heart, and then it's okay, now you take over. The person would say the next 30 blot, and they would just keep on going that way. And every once in a while, one gadol would correct the other gadol, made a little mistake or something. That's how they do it. Those were the fun and games of the olden days. But okay. Anyway, okay. So now I want to go back to this. We talked about Chadash, and we talked about the Omer as the matir of Chadash. And we talked about the mitzvah of counting the Omer. There's one final aspect we have not talked about. Oh, by the way, today, of course, is Pesach Sheni. And Pesach Sheni is worthy of, in fact, maybe it's B'Shet that I talked about the mitzvah of matzah today, because if you didn't bring the korban Pesach the first time around because you were tamei, you would bring it today, meaning you would bring it today and you would eat the korban Pesach tonight with matzah. You're allowed to have chametz on Pesach Sheni and the night, but you would eat matzah, moror, and the korban Pesach. And Pesach Sheni itself has a very, very beautiful, important message. What was the story? They brought a korban Pesach in the midbar. That's the 1 year after they left Mitzrayim. They only brought it once in the midbar. They brought a Pesach in Mitzrayim. That's the first Seder. They brought a Pesach the first year, and then the next Pesach they brought was in the days of Yoshua ben Nun. For the rest of the 40 years in the desert, they did not bring a korban Pesach, but they did bring a korban Pesach the very first year in the desert. They brought it in the Mishkan. And the Torah tells me there were people who were tamei, and because they were ritually impure, they were tamei, they were not able to bring the korban Pesach, and they went to Moshe Rabbeinu and they complained, why should we be deprived? Moshe didn't know the answer. He asked Hashem, and Hashem said, if somebody is tamei, or the second part is really when you're in Eretz Yisrael, or they're far away from the Beis HaMikdash, they're given a second chance. They're given a chance later. So first of all, who are these people that are tamei? And why are they tamei? So the Gemara in Sukkah gives two different interpretations why they are tamei. Some say that these were the Leviim who carried out the bodies of Nadav and Avihu. Remember, this is shortly after the Mishkan was dedicated. And on the day that the Mishkan was dedicated, Nadav and Avihu died because they brought a foreign fire for the incense that they shouldn't have brought, or they didn't marry. There are a million different averos they did. And their bodies, their dead bodies, had to be removed from the Mishkan. And the people who removed the dead bodies, their cousins actually, were Tameh. So they were Tameh because they carried the bodies of Nadav and Avihu. That's one pshat. The other pshat is that throughout the 40 years in the desert, people were carrying the bones of Yosef. And it was on rotation. And these were the people whose rotation it was to carry the bones of Yosef. So they were Tameh because they were Nosei Arono Shel Yosef. Be it as it may, they were Tameh. They went to Moshe and they asked Moshe, Lama Nigara, why should we be deprived? Moshe didn't know the answer. Let's stop right there. We believe, do we not? It says in Pirkei Avos, Moshe kibel Torah misinai. Moshe got the Torah on Har Sinai. The 40 days, both the first time and the second 40 days, Hashem gave him the whole Torah. Now, if Hashem gave him the whole Torah, that means Hashem must have given him the mitzvah of Pesach Sheni, because that's in the Torah. So how could Moshe not know what the halacha is if he got the Torah at Sinai? Now, in truth, there are 4 places in the Torah where Moshe didn't know the halacha and he needed to ask Hashem. Pesach Sheni is one of them. He needed to ask Hashem. The other one is the Makoshes, the one who gathered wood. Moshe Rabbeinu did not know what the punishment was for a Mechalel Shabbos. He knew it was a death penalty, but he didn't know it was stoning. He had to ask Hashem. The third was the blasphemer, the one who cursed God. Once again, Moshe didn't know the punishment. He had to ask Hashem. And the fourth was the daughters of Tzlafchad. That Tzlafchad died without sons. The Torah already said that when a man dies, his property goes to his sons, but it doesn't say daughters inherit. So Tzlafchad's brothers were claiming they're next in line. The daughters are saying we're next in line. Moshe didn't know. He had to ask Hashem. So we have 4 cases. The Makoshesh, the wood gatherer, the Megadef, the blasphemer, Pesach Sheni, and Benos Tzlafchad. In all 4 of those cases, Moshe didn't know the answer. He had to ask Hashem. Problem, didn't he get those mitzvos at Har Sinai? How could he not know? Did he forget? There's some midrash he literally forgot, but the pashtus is he didn't know. So let's go back a little bit. Again, we talked about this before, but it's important enough that it's kedai to go over it. When we say Moshe got the Torah at Sinai, right? Moshe kibel Torah misinai. What do we mean by Moshe got the Torah at Sinai? Because keep in mind that Maimed Har Sinai is in the middle of the Chumash. It's Perek Chaf of Sefer Shmos. There's a lot of stuff that happened after Har Sinai. The Cheder Egel, Korach, Meraglim, the building of the Mishkan. So Moshe got all that at Sinai. So the Mefarshim explain that when we say Moshe got the Torah at Sinai, that doesn't mean he got the Sefer Torah at Sinai. That wasn't written till it happened. But it means Hashem gave him a listing of the 613 mitzvahs. Torah means Hashem gave him the mitzvahs and their interpretation. But the narratives and the history were not given by God until after they happened. Like Moshe was not given the words of the Chet Egel while he's still at Har Sinai. He wasn't given Korach. Okay, that's fine. But even then, we have to make a further distinction. Because if you read the Torah, it's very, very clear that mitzvos are revealed at different times for different occasions. Mitzvos are revealed over time. So the Chazon Ish is masber. Moshe was given all the 613 mitzvos at Sinai. But he would not reveal them to Bnei Yisrael till Hashem told him to reveal them. And for reasons we don't always understand, mitzvos were actually revealed over a 40-year period. There were mitzvos that the Jewish people did not get till the very last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. So we have to differentiate between when did Moshe get the information? That was Sinai. And when was he authorized to communicate the information to Bnei Yisrael? And the Chazon Ish says, this is the great significance of the ubiquitous phrase, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor. Hashem spoke to Moshe. So in English, it's translated saying. It's a superfluous word. Why are you saying Lemor? The Chazon Ish says, no, this is a very, very meaningful phrase. Hashem spoke to Moshe Lemor to tell other people, you are now given the green light to reveal what you know to Bnei Yisrael. Lemor is the green light of Hashem authorizing Moshe to reveal it. So with this, the Chazon Ish says, we have a wonderful understanding of the four areas where Moshe Rabbeinu had to ask God. Pesach Sheni, Makoshesh, Megadev, B'no Salavcha. Moshe knew the mitzvah of Pesach Sheni because Hashem gave him that mitzvah. But he was not yet told to reveal it. So when we say he doesn't know what to do, it doesn't mean he's ignorant of the mitzvah. But he's asking Hashem, is now the proper time to reveal it? And as Hashem wanted it to be revealed through the meritorious action of different people. So he wanted Pesach Sheni to be revealed by the people who were asking. By B'nai Salavchad, he wanted it to be revealed by the daughters who were showing that they loved Eretz Yisrael. Okay, Makoshesh Megadev, it's a little harder to see the merit, but whatever it is, Hashem wanted it to be revealed at that time. Okay, so that's a wonderful explanation. So now, the Chidush Yarim says the following. Now we're jumping into the Hasidic world. We have these people that are Tameh, and they are complaining to Moshe. Now, l'chayra, why are they complaining? L'chayra, they're patur. If you're Tameh, you're exempt from doing this mitzvah. So what are you complaining about? I mean, let's imagine, people clean the house for Pesach. It's hard work, especially for the women. So let's imagine you got a document signed, sealed by Hashem. It's not a forgery that says, you are patur from doing Pesach this year. Putting aside the halachic problem of lo b'shamayim, it's not clear that God could even abrogate Pesach, but okay. But putting that question aside, am I going to complain? Why should I lose the chance, to clean my house for Pesach? If you're patur, you're patur. Take advantage of it. So the Chidush Yarim says, you see from here, that when one loves Hashem, see, if your relationship to Hashem is you just want to get by and do whatever you can get away with, so if you're patur, you're not going to complain. But if you love God, it's not just a question of getting your job done, but you love God. You seek opportunities to serve Him. And when you don't have a chance to serve him, you feel pain. And you beg for another chance. So Pesach Sheni represented the idea that a person who loves Hashem looks for opportunities to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what's the message of Pesach Sheni? The message of Pesach Sheni is the gift of a second chance. That no matter how tameh you are, no matter how impure you are, or derech rechoka, no matter how far you think you are from Hashem, far away, if you truly, truly want another chance, another opportunity to serve Hashem, He will make that opportunity there. Never give up. The tameh person, and we could be spiritually impure. The derech rechoka person is so far away. Pesach Sheni says Hashem will give you a chance. But here is the chap. There's something very interesting here. What would have been if the people wouldn't have asked? What if they just would have said, okay, we're patur. What's the big deal? Pesach Sheni wouldn't have been revealed then. At least at that point, maybe later it would have been revealed on some other occasion. Meaning, you always get the second chance, but you have to ask for it. You have to want it. If they wouldn't have expressed that they wanted it, they wouldn't have got it. God did not initiate this. What was initiated, the process was initiated by the Yechidim who wanted this second chance. So Hashem will always give you another chance, but you have to show Him that you want it. People often say, if only Hashem would show me a sign, then I would commit myself. Well, sometimes that does happen. I'm not going to deny it. There are stories about those things. But often it's the opposite. Hashem kind of says, no, you got your order reversed. You show me a sign. You show me what you want. You show me your commitment. And then I'll move forward. You see? So that's what Pesach Sheni is. You show Hashem that you really care. Hashem creates the gift of a second chance. So it's a wonderful thing. Pesach Sheni, again, we tend not to make a big deal of celebration. I mean, today you got a little bit of a bargain because Monday, when it's a long tachanan, right? So you gain a little, I hate talking this way, but this is human nature. You gain a little bit. But the truth is, Pesach Sheni is a very, very spiritual, meaningful day. In fact, it's almost a little anomalous. Lag BaOmer is coming up. We'll talk about Lag BaOmer too. And Lag BaOmer, you're allowed to get haircuts, and you're allowed to listen to music. The morning of the Omer gets lifted on Lag BaOmer. It's a little strange why the morning of the Omer does not get lifted on Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is actually a Yom Tov, at least a quasi Yom Tov, on a Torah level. Lag BaOmer is not at all connected to any Torah level, but Pesach Sheni was a very, very chashuv thing, and it's a very powerful message to a person doing tshuva, and all of us should be doing tshuva, to remind a person never to give up, and to always know, no matter how tameh we might think we've become, no matter how much b'derech rechoka, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us chances as long as we truly want it and we ask for it. And this is where we focus our commitment. So that's just a little bit of a thought about Pesach Sheni. So now I want to talk a little bit about the morning aspect of the Omer. Everyone knows that the Omer is connected, the Omer period is connected to Hilchos Avelos. We don't get married, we don't haircuts or shaving. Music is interesting. We don't listen to live music. I'll talk a little bit about that too. And it's very important to understand that this is not intrinsic to the Omer. The Sefer HaChinuch points out that there is nothing about Sefiras HaOmer that should be sad in any way. These are days looking to Matan Torah. Be'etzem, intrinsically, These should be days of joy, days of celebration. The Avelos is not intrinsic in the Omer, but it comes from an event, a tragic event that happened many centuries later. That is the deaths of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. He had 24,000 students. Which is amazing. I mean, the largest yeshiva in the world today, Mir, is like 8,000, 9,000 at most. 24,000 students, and they all died between Pesach and Shavuos. I think we mentioned this the other day. And because of this, we have minhagim of Avelos. Now, again, I want to be very clear. The Gemara records that the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died. That's in the Gemara. And the Gemara even records the reason for their deaths. They did not show proper honor and respect to each other. That's in the Gemara. But the Gemara does not say, therefore we observe Avelos. As far as the Gemara is concerned, there were no minhagei Avelos in Sefira. The minhagei Avelos of Sefira do not date from the Gemara. The minhagei Avelos of Sefira date from the time of the Gaonim, who record that because of the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, we don't do certain things. Now, the Gaonim record not getting married and not giving haircuts, not getting haircuts or shaving. Right, that was the minhagim of the Gaonim. So the thing about music is very, very interesting. Right, I may have mentioned this. Forgive me if I'm repeating. Sometimes you may have a friend, maybe on the more modern side, or maybe you do. Maybe you raise the question yourself that gives you a Mishnah Berurah and says, show me where in the Mishnah Berurah you're not allowed to listen to music during the Omer. And your initial reaction is going to be, for sure, well, it's got to be there. Of course it's there, because everybody knows you don't listen to music during the Omer. And you're looking, and you're looking, and you're looking, and you're looking, and you're not going to find it. Because it's not there. There is no statement in the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, or the Mishnah Berurah that you're not allowed to listen to music during Sefira. And by the way, the same thing is true for the 3 weeks and the 9 days later on. Doesn't say. So your friend will triumphantly tell you, oh, so you see, that means it's okay because it doesn't say it's usher. Well, that's a little bit of a mistake. The reason why the Shulchan Aruch does not say you're not allowed to listen to music during Sefira is because the Shulchan Aruch paskins, you're not allowed to listen to music the whole year. Zecher l'chorban, to commemorate the Chorban, you're not allowed to listen to music. So there's no reason to single out the Omer or the 3 weeks. Can't listen to it any time. Now, obviously, although it's not clear why, but obviously we don't follow that halacha. Obviously, for various reasons, we are mekel during the year. But memela, it's brought down that even if we're mekel during the year, during these periods of Avelos, 3 weeks, Omer, we should be machmer. But you can't bring a permissive inference from the Shulchan Aruch's omission of the Yisr, because Shulchan Aruch held it was usher all the time. Okay, so be careful about that. Now, what music is usher, what music is mutter, ask your local Orthodox rabbi. I don't know if that's me or whoever it would be. I don't know. That's always very frustrating. Sometimes you read Sifrei Halacha, when they get to a difficult problem, you say, ask your local rabbi, etc. So, well, what am I supposed to do? It doesn't. I'm looking at the Sefer to get upset too. But anyway, so the core issue is live music. Whether recorded music is mutter, the minhag is to be machmir. But if someone needs it for exercising, if someone needs it for anxiety, if someone needs it even just to work because you can't concentrate without some music. So there are leniencies for recorded music if you have headphones. Again, l'chatchila you try to avoid it, but for these needs, we are mekel with recorded music with headphones. Optimally, it should not be dance type, although the exercise will tend to be fast, but for the other cases at least, better to have more of a slow music than a dancing type of music. So again, if anyone has a particular shiloh, they could ask. And as you know, there are also a cappella recordings, and some don't like them. They say they're the same as music, but others are makel with a cappella, even during the 3 weeks and the 9 days, even on Tisha B'Av, some are makel with a cappella. So there are, avenues that one could be makel if there's an extreme hardship. Again, it's especially hardship, forget about Sefira, if a person is in mourning for their parents, so they're not supposed to listen to music for a whole year. And there for sure, many people do need some connection to music, and we do find different leniencies. Okay, be it as it may, we commemorate the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva by minhagim of Avelos. Now, the big problem is, 24,000 students, that's a very bad thing, of course. But come on, we've had worse. We've had Holocaust. Why every single year we got to remember the 24,000 Talmidim? And the answer is Pashut. If the issue would have been you're mourning the deaths of righteous people, then you're right, the Holocaust might have been a bigger deal. But the issue is not just mourning. See, the issue is rectification. The Holocaust, we don't know why it happened. People write books, people give theories. We don't know why Hashem was geyser. So we don't know what to focus on. But with the students of Rabbi Akiva, Chazal gave us a definitive reason for their deaths. That's important. Lo yinagu kavod zeh lezeh. So when the Gaonim started the custom of mourning, this really means rectification, tikkun, repair. You know why they died. Think about that. And in your own life, try to show kavod to every person. See, that's the difference. I mourn the Holocaust, but I don't know b'diuk what it is I'm supposed to fix. I can have thoughts, but I don't know. When I mourn the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, I know exactly what I'm supposed to fix. So what's my job? Fix it. Vaynagu kavod zeh lezeh. You see? So that's why we still think about Talmidei of Rabbi Akiva. So now it turns out that Sefira HaOmer is kind of a mixture of emotions. On one hand, we're preparing for Matan Torah, which should be happy and joyous. On the other hand, I think of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, which generates sadness. But in reality, they come together because we can't be makabel the Torah until we are ish echad uvalev echad, one person, one soul. So when we try to rectify the chait of the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, we are in fact, it's not a distraction, we are in fact preparing for receiving the Torah by making ourselves more ish echad uvalev echad. Right? So that's why it's not a contradiction. It actually fits the hachana for Kabbalah's Torah. Now, unlike the counting of the Omer, which for sure is 49 days, there's no machlokus about that, the morning of the Omer, Mourning, the morning of the Omer, there are many, many, many different minhagim. How many days do you mourn? How many days do you observe? So let me just mention the most common minhagim. One minhag, which I'll mention first, although it's not the most common minhag, is the minhag of the Arizal, in which essentially you keep all 49 days of Avelis, except for Lag BaOmer itself, meaning you go from second day of Pesach all the way, including Erev Shavuos, and your only break is Lag BaOmer. That's minhag number one. Minhag number two is you start second day of Pesach, and you go until Lag BaOmer, and from Lag BaOmer onwards, everything is mutter. Meaning you stop your Avelis on Lag BaOmer in the daytime, everything is going to be mutter. That's minhag number two. Minhag number three is You don't do any Avelos during the month of Nisan, and you start your Avelos on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and you go until 3 days before Shavuos, with again Lag BaOmer as a break. In other words, you stop with the Shleisha Shemei Hagbala. Minhag number 4 is you start after Rosh Chodesh Iyar, which is 2 days, and you have to have 2 more days of Hagbala as part of your Avelos, and you stop Erev Shavuos with Lag BaOmer as a hiatus. And the final minhag is minhag of many, many Svardim, which is very, very interesting, and that is, they don't look at Lag BaOmer as a break at all. They go from the second day of Pesach through Lag BaOmer, and they matter the Avelas from Lamed Daled BaOmer, meaning they don't look at Lag, they're the only one of the minhagim that does not, even though they celebrate Lag BaOmer, but in terms of Avelas, music and getting married, they will not get married on Lag BaOmer, they will get married on Lad BaOmer. Okay, so we have all of these different minhagim, all 49 days, except for Lag BaOmer. Second day of Pesach, up to Lag BaOmer, after Lag BaOmer Mutter. Rosh Chodesh Iyar, starting Rosh Chodesh Iyar, until 3 days before Shavuos, with Lag BaOmer as a break. Starting after Rosh Chodesh Iyar until Erev Shavuos, with Lag BaOmer as a break. Or second day of Pesach, through Lag BaOmer, only allowing afterwards. We'll discuss tomorrow what's the source of all of these minhagim. But one of the very, very important questions that is Nogea L'Maisa is if you are invited to a chasana at a time where for the chasana and the kala it is not. I mean, let's assume, for example, you start second day of Pesach with your Avelos restrictions, and the chassan and the kala don't start their Sefira restrictions till after Rosh Chodesh or on Rosh Chodesh. And you get invited to a wedding before Rosh Chodesh Iyar. So for you, it's a period of mourning. For them, it's not a period of mourning. Are you allowed to go to the wedding even though there's going to be music and the like? So Rav Moshe Feinstein has a big chiddush that everybody agrees with. In fact, maybe most poskim don't agree with, but it's a fascinating chiddush. Rav Moshe actually claims there is no Isser to go to a wedding during Sefira. The Isser of Sefira is to get married during Sefira. So, if I'm invited to a non-frum wedding that is violating the laws of the Omer, I shouldn't go because I'm giving support to an improper marriage at this point. But if I'm invited to a wedding that the chassan and the kala are allowed to have, there's no chiyuv on me not to go to a wedding. I'm not getting married. So Rav Moshe actually paskins, I can go to a wedding that is mutter for the chassan and the kala, even though it's during my Omer period. Because there's no isser of going to a wedding, there's only an isser of getting married. But then you'll ask, okay, wait a second, okay, there's no isser of going to a wedding. But if our minhag is we don't listen to live music, how can I go to the wedding? What about the live music at the wedding? Even if you're going to tell me the wedding thing is not violated by my going to a wedding, but the music thing is violated. So on this, Rav Moshe says, if the wedding is mutter, the mitzvah of simchas chassan v'kala will override the music prohibition too. And not only that, Rav Moshe even says, the mitzvah of chassan v'kala will override the prohibition against shaving and haircuts. So if I'm invited to a wedding, which is mutter, again, it's mutter for them. If it's not mutter for them, I shouldn't go. But if it's mutter for them, and I'm invited during the wedding, I'm allowed to go, I'm allowed to listen to the music, I'm allowed to dance, and I'm even allowed, Rav Moshe learns, to get a shave and a haircut if I need it, because for the mitzvah of chasna v'kala, that's going to be docha, the Sefira restrictions. Now you'll notice, I want to point out, that this is a different mahalech than most people approach it. Most people ask the question, when they ask me this question, they'll say, am I allowed to change my minhag from one group of days to the other? I will talk about that. But here's Rav Moshe's point. You don't have to change your minhag. Meaning, you will still keep your avelis the way you did it, but being invited to a wedding will override your avelis for that day. So people are asking the wrong question in this context, because 9 out of 10 times, this is why people ask the question. Now, if you ask me the question, I want to get married during my avelis, then we have to talk about, can I change my count? I'll talk about that tomorrow. But most of the time, people are asking the question, can I change my count, because they want to go to a wedding. Okay, it's important to know that according to Rav Moshe, you don't have to change your count at all. You keep your count, and you're allowed to go to the wedding af al pi chen, because the Isser was only to get married, the Isser was not going to a wedding. But again, I want to repeat, if the wedding, however, itself is in violation of Sefira, you should not go. Well, I mean, again, if you have an unusual circumstance, like a balchut, whatever, but b'derech klal, you should not go, because that's encouraging people who are violating halacha. That would not be proper. But if it's mutter for the chassan and the kala, it's mutter for you to go. Okay? All right, have a good day.
Thank you for listening to this Ohr Somayach production. To find out more and to partner in our mission, please visit ohr.edu.